So, yeah, we'll be looking into using Figma and using Figma specifically to create Vaadin UIs. First, let's start with what is Figma. So Figma is a collaborative interface design tool, quite popular nowadays with UI UX designers and also like business people or like domain experts, product owners, etc. The benefits of Figma compared to some other software are that it's running in a browser. So in order to view the files, you don't need any software installations, and it has a lot of like collaborative features. So you can share a same working space with a colleague, for example. The structure how Figma works is quite well aligned nowadays with web components or code. It's not a low-code tool. It doesn't generate you code, but kind of the concepts it has for the components and mechanisms for repeating like a component API toggling on features is pretty well aligned with that. So Figma is free to use, free to get started. It does have some paid features. All the like essential core features are free. The paid accounts or paid license is needed when you start collaborating on a file with someone. Once you start sharing assets, so if you have a design that will be referenced in other files as a component, that's when you start to need a paid license. But anything that we are doing today will be something that you can also follow without having a paid account. Today's webinar will be focusing more on the Vaadin specific things of building Vaadin applications, not that much on the fundamentals of Figma. I am basically drawing a UI, so I'm touching some of the things how you do those in Figma, but it's not going to be like going through every feature in Figma. Figma has very good tutorials for entry level and more advanced stuff on YouTube. So please do check out those if there's something that you need more advice on. So the Vaadin specific things for Figma, we do have 3 asset files. The Vaadin design system itself, which is the biggest of these 3, it includes all the Vaadin components, pixel perfect representations of those, and styling according to the Luma theme, which is the default Vaadin theme for the latest versions. In addition to the Vaadin design system, we have the Vaadin charts and Vaadin icons as separate assets. This is simply to keep it more organized, that when you're searching for components within the Vaadin design system, otherwise one of those hundreds of icons would be bloating the results. So it makes it a bit more manageable. All of these assets are free to use now and forever. We are not planning on limiting these in any way. You can find those following this link or in the Figma community, which is kind of their platform for sharing files. There you can search for Vaadin and you will find all these files. Before we get into drawing UIs, I want to touch quickly on like typical process related to coming up with designs. Designing is essentially like solving challenges, solving issues, and we start with some kind of challenge, some kind of problem. This might be based on a user feedback, or it might be coming from a business that we need to do some changes. For example, a challenge might be that a complex form in the application, it takes forever to fill and it's very error prone to do that. So how to start solving something like that? First, you should start with like a discovery phase where you're taking a step backwards and kind of understanding who are the users using this functionality, what setting are they on, is it always the same, are the all right people finding their way in there, what are they expecting to do there, why is something complex or error prone. Once you have expanded your thinking about the challenge at hand, you should start defining, coming to a definition of your problem. This might be listing the different factors causing the poor user experience, kind of drawing conclusions from this research. And once you have a definition for what you are actually solving, you can start working towards a solution. It's not going to be a straight path from a definition of a challenge into a solution. But again, instead, you're starting to look into positive alternative solutions. In this phase, we do like quick iterations, maybe look into other competitors or other similar solutions, how other people are doing their forms, how to make like a less error prone UIs. Once we have created a few variations and maybe in this phase you can already do iterations of those designs, maybe get a little bit of feedback, get the first impressions and so on, you should start focusing on one of those alternatives as your like a final solution. And then you start focusing on the delivering the solution. So start polishing that one option a little bit more. Start preparing for doing a handover. Start documenting it more fully. Here, the Figma prototypes can be a good tool in describing how it fits into a larger set of views and how the interactions are happening. So this is more like high fidelity designs and mockups, and the developing phase is more about ideating and more like a wireframe level. What we typically do in Figma is the right part, so the ones that are on this purple color. So this is more about producing visual assets, while the blue part is more about definition work and requirements gathering. That's everything I actually had for the theory part, and now we can start drawing stuff in Figma. I have written a small specification for what we are doing. So this is going to be an application called Job Planner, and we are creating a registration form for new employees. So we might imagine that this is the specifications that have been handed over for us, and we're going to be creating a new view in the employees module of the application, and the view should consist of a form that has these fields: first name, last name, email address, etc. In addition to the form, there should be a list of tasks for a new employee in which the user can select the relevant ones that are required. There's also our imaginary corporate brand guidelines attached, so some colors, and the writer of the specifications have kindly attached few screenshots taken from Drupal that serve as a good examples of the visual styling that the team would like to get. So how to get started with something like this? First, we go into the Figma community, and then in here we search for Vaadin. We can see a number of files. Mainly these are about made by the Vaadin team. So we take the Vaadin design system and we click open it in Figma. And now we can rename our file that this is the job planner. If we had a paid account, we could define this file. It includes a number of components. So for example, in the combo box, we have the combo box, multi-select combo, an overlay, and a mobile version of the select component. There's some documentation around the components, mainly the visual aspects of the components, and a link to the Vaadin docs for the technical documentation. Some examples on how to use the component, and yeah, what I was about to say about the assets is that if we were in a shared space, we could publish these assets, the components that we have, to be used in our team. But in today's case, we are working in a way that you could use these without having a paid license. So we are creating our designs within the same file. So I'm creating a new page, and now we're still in the same file that consists all the components. And also this defines all the colors and typography styles, etc., that are in the Lumo. So to start with, let's copy over our specifications and start by creating an empty canvas. So this is going to be a new employee view. And when we're making an application, maybe the easiest part to start with is the kind of the frame for the application. So let's add a navigation bar at the top. Maybe we don't need the drawer button, and the name of the application is going to be Job Planner, like so. Then we can imagine that we would have a navigation in here. What I'm doing now is I'm picking a predefined text style. So I'm trying to do as little new definitions as possible, and instead use the things that already exist in the Vaadin design system, or come from there. So we have a home view. Let's add a couple more. It could be something like tasks, employees, and maybe like settings. And I'm taking these text labels, creating a auto layout group out of those. Auto layout is Figma's representation of flex layout, so I can define the spacing between the items, etc. more easily. Let's say that the employees one is selected, so maybe that's more bold, and maybe all of these use a secondary text color. So also all the colors are variables based on Lumo. So we can simply pick those from the list instead of defining any color values. The selected one, let's say that that's the primary text color. Okay. What else? I guess quite common for applications is to have some kind of user profile thingy. So maybe we want to have an avatar in the corner. Maybe we want a search field as well, so that would be a text field in our case. And I guess some kind of notifications center icon button in there as well. So now we have 3 components in here: a text field, a button, and a avatar. If we select the text field, we can see that it has number of properties. This is what I mentioned about the matching with the API. And here we can do some overrides. We can say that, okay, we don't want to show a label for this. The value should be search. And maybe we want a suffix. And the suffix itself is a component. And we could say that's the search icon. For this one, I was thinking that it could be an icon button with the bell icon, so it's more like a notification. Here we might, instead of having like a solid color, we could pick a image style. There's predefinitions for different colors, different images, just as like a sample content. Then let's have these in the corner, make them appear on a single line. Maybe again we can use the auto layout here, define some spacing between those and put it somewhere here. To keep our file neat and organized, we can select the navbar, our menu, and maybe this is like a secondary menu. We can rename these layers and groups, but we can also create a new group out of these and call it the app nav or app header, for example. So that's the foundation for our application. Then for the content, we are looking into the specifications and we know there's going to be some kind of form. So let's start by searching for a text field. I'm just gonna simply duplicate some of those text fields in here. And what's neat about these is that I can replace the values. And later on, I can still swap the type. So it might not be a text field, but instead a date picker, for example, and I can switch that on the fly. So that's why personally I like starting with the text fields and then replacing those to be other components. Let's say email. Start date, and now we know this one is going to be a date field, so we can also search for the components in here, and maybe the start date is empty now, and now the label stayed the same. After the start date, we have a needs onboarding or need for onboarding, which is a Boolean value, so maybe that's a checkbox. Needs onboarding. Job title, team, and we're running out of fields. Supervisor and profile picture upload. So also the profile picture upload, that's not going to be a text field. It's going to be a upload component, which looks something like that. Okay, now we have a very simple form. How to make this a little bit better, or how to improve the usability of this, is what we can do is start grouping these things together. So let's say that these first things, first name, last name, and email, those are related to the personal details, while the others are more about the job. So if we move those in here, add a new text layer, change personal details, and now we want to use something like a heading style. And for the rest, we wanted to have job details. So the starting date, title, team, and supervisor. Maybe the profile picture doesn't quite fit in there, so let's put that on the side. Okay, now we can again make our file a little bit more organized. So I'm selecting all these, and let's say that this is like a form section or personal form, and this is job form. So we have two form sections. Next, we could organize our form a little bit better. So maybe to align these. The email is expected to be a bit wider, so let's use double those. The start date and need for onboarding could be on the same line, somewhat related. Job title, team, and supervisor. Maybe those should get the same double weight. Then we can work on the spacing. So now the space between these two is 16 pixels. And this field, we can use this spacing setting in here to have even spacing on all sides. I'm using this on Mac, so holding down Alt shows you these red lines or measurements between the objects. So I'm quite often using those to have a consistent spacing across between the elements. Here now I just have some random spacing, so I can click on tidy up, and it will do an equal spacing. Okay, that's already better. The job title, maybe the team and supervisor, maybe those are like selecting from an existing option. So maybe that's like a combo box instead. Okay, seems pretty decent for now. Let's see the specifications. Profile picture. We should also have a list of tasks where we can select relevant ones. So maybe something like a list box could do in this case. Let's use the same title style in there and the same spacing. We could also take the same, it was 400 pixels wide, so the same size. So everything aligns neatly. For the list box, it contains multiple items and there's a couple hidden ones, so we can easily enable these or hide these. We can also define the state of these, that are they in focused mode or selected or whatever. Tasks for new employee. So these could be something like health check or meeting with HR, meeting with CEO. that, and these are selectable. Maybe visually it's nicer if we add lines between these items. So now I'm selecting the item objects or elements and adding a stroke. Again, we are not defining a ad hoc color, but picking from the existing options and saying that we want that to be on the bottom. Maybe if the things on the right are one section, we can create a group or a frame out of these. We can also use the auto layout here. Maybe we want to define this spacing more explicitly. Something like that. For the right side, we can define some paddings or give a background color to this, so it stands out from the rest a little. There's also the concept of variables in Figma. So the border radiuses, for example, now correspond to what you have in Lumo in the Vaadin applications. So we can pick from existing number values for a border radius. So let's use the medium or large border radius in here. We can align these together and maybe say that the spacing between these is something like 80 pixels, and I think I used 40 between those, and then maybe center this on the page. Sorry, like so. Still looks pretty plain, so maybe we need a title. Title for the whole thing, or for the view. I tend to use multiplies of the number 4, so something like 48, 36, 24, etc. for the spacings and sizings. And as this is a form, we need a button to save our form and maybe cancel as well. And then maybe align these and make them a group or a frame as well. Okay, that is already would be functional and filling the specifications. Then there was some requirements for visual styles. So let's see what we can easily do about those. Here's our color palette that we want to apply to this. And now we get into the Figma variables. So similar to the CSS styles, the Figma, all the colors, for example, or some of the sizings are based on variables. Here we can start with the primary color. So we have some blue elements in the view. Let's start by defining the primary, which is in Lumo, is the blue one, to be this like green teal color. And now as we do changes in here, those should be immediately reflected to our UI. So now I replaced all the blue colors with the teal. Okay, now I'm wondering, why is this bugging? Okay, it's not Okay, I did a mistake somewhere that I used the Vaadin design system component instead of the local components within this file. I think we can fix that. So I had like a dependency to another file. So instead of Vaadin design system, we are using the local components in this case. Like so. And now we can see the colors changing into. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a headache. And let's go with those. Tweaking the variables, we might change some of the error colors, success colors, for example, to follow these. We didn't use those in the example, so maybe we don't need those for now. Maybe what we could do is take some of the styling from these input fields. So these have like bordered style instead of the Vaadin default styling, which is the fill. So for example, the text field fill is based on a variable as well. So it should be as easy as going into the components variables, and let's change the fill color to be base, which is the white, and the border. Now we don't see the border. There's a variable for the border width. Let's change that to be 1. So now the border becomes visible. And the border color may be something a bit more subtle. Something like that. Now these didn't change, so I need to still go back and change these into the local version. Sorry about that. And this is the text field. And the combo. Right. So now if we go into like select one of these, navigate into the main component, which these are referring, we are in the same file where we can find all the different components. So now we can see that we tweaked the variables and the same styling was applied across different types of components. The checkbox background seems to be a separate color variable, so let's change that as well. Like so. The fields, for example, have some predefined states, so I can change the state of the input field to be an invalid state or to a read-only state, for example. Now we have some red color in here, and the red color is also defined as a variable. To make it a bit more interesting, maybe we could apply a background color, something called base and 5% contrast. Maybe this should be white, and maybe now our header bar should be white as well. Here we are again having the same issue with the referring the Vaadin DS components instead of the local ones. So I'm just changing those. So now they have the same styling. If we want to further modify the styles of the components, let's say that we want to change the secondary button, we can select that, go into the component, and here in these components make our changes. So these are the master components that the designs are referring to. So maybe instead of a fill, we want to have a stroke, something like that. Now I won't be fixing this, but naturally you should be using like a border column matching the text. But now that we changed it here, now we should get the same changes in like across all the use cases of the component. Yep. What else? Maybe we could turn this into a like interactive prototype. Something I can think of is if we make this a little bit higher, maybe make the contents to be there. So if we want to create a prototype where you click on the profile picture and it shows a picture in that space, just to show the different states of the UI, we could take this one. I hit Command D to duplicate the frame, and then somewhere in here there was a picture. So if we put that in the space, let's make sure it is the same height as the original, so it won't be jumping around. Like so. Maybe again apply a. Okay, so that's our two states. We have the like empty one and a view when this is uploaded. Okay, now I did something with the size. So this was 400 pixels. So now they are the same. Maybe for the image we need a button that allows us to remove the given image, so we can change that. So let's say that we want a tertiary icon button, and the icon should be maybe not green, but pick one of these existing things, and the icon should be something like a cross. So now, if we want a prototype where we are moving between these two slides, we select the element that we want to link. So in this case, it could be this whole area. We switch to a tab called prototype. And once we have the prototype active and the corresponding the right layer selected, we can see this blue dot appearing in here, and that's a track handle, which we are tracking into this another frame. There's a few different triggers. The most common ones are the that something is happening on hover or on on click or on hover. We might define that what happens when the click happens. So the most common would be navigating between different slides. I can show you an example of opening an overlay. That's quite useful as well. And then there's some animations that might happen if the new view is sliding in or dissolving or something. Okay, so clicking here takes us to the other frame, and let's define that clicking on this button takes us back to this one. Now we can run our prototype with the play button and see that when we are clicking somewhere in the view, the interactive area flashes in blue. And once we click there, we see an image appearing and we can remove the image. So this is a good way of like demoing some of the interactions in the UI. Let's make the date picker also interactive. So we select the date picker, like all of the field to be interactive. So when we click anywhere there, now we don't want to navigate into this frame, but instead we want to open an overlay. And it's not going to be in the center of the view, but instead we want to manually define the position. So it should be here underneath the field. Now we can already see that this is too big. So let's make it smaller, something like that. Should fit. Yes, now it's in the view. We can also define that when we click outside, it's going to close the overlay, and we can do another one in here which says that if we click anywhere within the overlay, it also closes. And now our prototype automatically updates. So now we can still click in here, or we can click on the date field to reveal an overlay. So kind of to demo the different states, you would be creating a slideshow with all the possible states and just swapping the view between those. What else? I think that's pretty much it for all the Figma features. So now we have a functional prototype created from scratch. The more complex the file grows, the more views you're gonna be having. One useful trick is to create your own components. So, for example, the app header. If you now make a change to this app header in one of our frames, let's say that this is going to be a tertiary button, so it doesn't have a border. The other frames won't be updated, but if we define that this app header group is a component, we can use that as a like a master component and reference to that from various views. So now whenever we're making changes to our master component, let's say that we want a dark background instead, it changes on all the instances immediately. This is quite useful if we have like things that are repeating in our UI. That's pretty much it. So I'm advising you to like get started with the Vaadin design system. This is the essential file containing all the Vaadin components. Start looking into that. It has all the different web components drawn in it, and now we've also added a bunch of use case examples how you can configure the component to be in different states and all the different functionalities it can have. So yeah, I think that concludes our demo for now. Then we had a polling question that we would like to hear your opinions on.
Okay, thank you, Juuso. If you go to the polls tab at the bottom right, you will see a poll question there. And let me make sure it's published. And the question is, which design assets or tools would boost your productivity? And it is a multiple choice, so you can select multiple options. And don't forget to hit the submit button right under there. I will make sure to give everyone enough time to choose their options. Give everyone a few more seconds. You can see the results. They're updating in real time. And it looks like Figma to Vaadin code generation. That's definitely a popular one.
Mm-hmm.
And then examples of complete application views and proven UX patterns. Those are some of the top ones. Well, I hope that's helpful for you, Juuso.
Yeah, it is. The Figma to Vaadin code generation is interesting one because there are some possibilities in doing that. But as mentioned, Figma isn't a low code tool. This is mainly for drawing images. So, but the format that it does define its files on. And now that we have like corresponding elements in Figma, kind of gives us an opportunity that it wouldn't be impossible to copy something from here and identify that, okay, this is a Vaadin text field with this configuration, and have a corresponding Java code or web component configuration for these elements. So yeah.
Yep.
And we have seen some approaches with some frameworks with something like that. Figma does have the dev mode, which is actually going out of beta today. So it is going to be a paid feature in the end, or like after today. The price isn't that big. I'm still not 100% clear which functionalities will be available for like inspecting the designs outside of the dev mode and which are in. I guess the like main goal here is that you can do plugin integrations. So we've been doing some testing with exporting the variables, as we saw in here, doing an export from those directly to CSS styles. That would be something that you can copy into your Vaadin application, and you would get like a similar look and feel instantly.
Okay, great. Well, we do have several questions, so we can move over to the Q&A. So I will hop right in there. First question actually we did was about the code generation, so we can skip past that one. So first question, can you name some good resources for Figma to start from scratch?
Sure. Actually, the like Figma's own training materials are pretty good. Also, the like Figma community, I think in here, no, I haven't used this in a while, but this has a bunch of Figma tutorials by the Figma team. So typically when there's any new features in Figma, they are also creating their own like training files. Let's see if I can find something relevant here. For example, the auto layout. They do a file where you have some kind of like playground and documentation for these things. So Figma itself is a good learning resource and entry point, and the community section in there. And as mentioned, the YouTube channel that they have has a bunch of like entry-level tutorials for all the possible features.
Okay, great. Next question, is it possible to create Vaadin 14 UIs using Figma?
We don't really have like different versions of the Vaadin design system file. So at the moment, kind of the contents of this file is aligned towards the latest version of the framework. But on the other hand, the styling for the components, for example, the buttons, the most essential things have been there since Vaadin 14. So Vaadin 14 was already based on Luma and the same styling. Along the way, we've just improved the stylability, for example, introducing the variables, or more and more variables and more component-specific variables. But essentially, the components are more or less the same. Along the way, we've added some components, like the message component, for example. Tooltip didn't exist in Vaadin 14, but the components that we had in the Vaadin 14 times are also like covered by the Vaadin design system file. So yes, you can still use the very same assets to create Vaadin 14 designs. Just be aware of like what components exist in the scope of Vaadin 14. Might be slightly different from the later versions. Mainly it's been on like adding more and more components. But yeah, still relevant in that sense.
All right. Is there a straightforward way in Vaadin to move combo boxes label to the left side?
To be on the like side of the input. I guess it applies to all the input fields. In the Figma file, we don't have that option, and also in the like components itself, there is no built-in option for the components. You would do that by using a form layout where there is a mode that has the labels on the left side of the fields. So you can look that up from the Vaadin documentation. I'm typing in as I'm talking, and look up the form layout, and there is a section for the label position and an example for having the labels on the left. But yeah, for like individual fields, there is no built-in option, so you need to be using a form layout to move the labels to the left.
Right. While making the personal details and job details form, why have you not used form layout Vaadin component?
Yeah, so inside Figma, I did show you the form layout, but there is no like a Figma definition for these. The Figma doesn't really know about the structure of the form layout, so this is just like a layouting example. And in Figma, these are essentially just like fields next to each other. There is no like strict defined structure. Basically, everything is like absolutely positioned in here. When implementing something like this, yes, it would be a good idea to use a Vaadin form layout instead of doing like absolute positioning for all the fields. But that's kinda the differences between having like a low-code tool versus a graphics editor. Figma still today is more a graphics editor than a low-code tool. So the markup that it doesn't correspond to any like actual implementations. So I prefer keeping my files organized and somehow like thinking as the layer list as a DOM structure to be closer to a real world implementation, but no, it's not like restricting that in any way. So that's why I don't have like a equivalent for a form layout.
Great. All right. What is the best way to manage layers? Whenever I tried to use Figma, I had trouble finding components, selecting the correct frames, and ordering the subcomponents.
Yeah, I've heard it's a very common thing that selecting things is challenging, and especially once your structures start to get deeper and deeper, that you have a lot of nested layers. Maybe this comes from like my own backbone, but the Figma, how it works is that when you point and click on anything, it selects the first the topmost layer or like the group essentially, and you do kind of like a deep click. On Mac, I'm holding down Command, and now I'm selecting the bottom-most element that it is matching. So it kind of dives through the whole hierarchy, and that's more helpful in selecting some specific element. Sometimes that might be difficult that when there's a lot of nested things to select the right one. So what I do then is I'm going somewhere, and then I'm using the layer panel to select the exact right element that I'm looking for.
Okay. Looks like we have another question on the version. If you are upgrading from an older version of Vaadin, will the new UI styles be applied to the existing project using the older Vaadin framework?
So the team in Vaadin, or since Vaadin 10, has been Lumo, and since then it's been the same Lumo team. So prior to that, the Vaadin 6, 7, and 8, they used a team called Valo. We don't have a representation of the Valo styles here in the Figma. Essentially, as there's no connection to code in the Figma, I don't think it's really relevant. You can't really import any designs to Figma, and also it's not directly integrated into your development environment in any way that it would automatically give you a compatible team. There are these plugins and ways of exporting styles from Figma, but it's not integrated in any way. So I don't know if that answers the question exactly, but kind of how I'm often explaining is that Figma only produces pretty images. It's not really the components or the same sources as your project has.
Okay, looks like we have time to get to one last question. Are there Figma components for tables or tree grids?
Yes, not for the table component, which did exist in the Vaadin 8, but for the data grid. This is one on the more complex side, how to make a component that can support all the different column types, etc. But this is our attempt in doing that. So yes, there is a grid component which has some controls for visuals, like what kind of row styling you want to have. You can also easily, this is just like a space separated, or just like line sizes in the value. So you can configure this and hide and show columns, change the column types, etc. And also there is like one specific type of a column is this tree column. So it is still like the actual implementation. It's kind of like a version of the regular grid that just has like a dedicated column for the hierarchical data.
Okay, great. Well, it looks like we got to most all of the questions. If you need any additional help, you can head over to our Discord channel, or of course, you can always reach out to us from the website. So thank you, Juuso, for presenting. And of course, thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.
Thank you. And if there's any feedback about the Figma components, I'm very open for any insights on what works for you or what doesn't. That's always valuable. Love to hear that. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone.